That's right. Welcome into the Creed of Crypto live stream. My name is Boi Crypto. I have here with me, as always, my friend and co-host Crypto Ewok. Welcome in, everybody in the chat. We got Checks My Pulse, Team RH in the chat. DJ Moonboy, of course. Take a break with Jake, who is hyping up the crowd before we even get started. So we really appreciate that from him. Welcome into another show. We got PulseChain continuing the double bottom in earnest now. It really wants to get after that, or who knows, maybe even new lows. We're all cuckoo at this point, so who gives a shit? We're going to find out and see what happens, but the whole market, of course, is a little bit down. So welcome in, everybody. Smash the like to help support Real DeFi and the channel. We appreciate all of you guys being here on this hot, muggy, humid, steamy, sexy July evening. I don't know. I just threw that in there. Yeah, we're going to talk tonight about, what is the thumbnail? I forget. Alt season coming. BTC has really been struggling lately. ETH, will we see it finally make a stand here in the coming weeks and months, getting the alts to kind of launch off of that as well? We'll talk about that and a whole lot more tonight. Ewok, how are you this evening?
I'm fantastic for a red candle Wednesday. I thought this was supposed to be red candle Tuesday till we switched our day, and now it's, we're still seeing that it's following us, man. I don't know. It's like like that gray cloud that keeps following you, but things are looking up. I mean, all over the place. There's a little bit more, bullish sentiment around for those that really believe, and people know that we're getting closer. And I keep hearing more people saying we're almost there, and it just takes time. It's a matter of the more of these bear markets you sit through, the easier it gets for you. So don't worry if this is your first one. It is pretty rough.
Well, make no mistake. I mean, like, we both fully believe we are in a bull market now as far as the overall crypto market is. But I know what you mean in terms of course, this ecosystem has been unique. We've had it's a long time coming basically at this point. And for people to see a double bottom right now, they're like, what the hell is going on and everything. So I do understand that. But we do have bullish signals and bullish things happening all around. There's lots to be bullish about, which we will talk about tonight for sure. Let's first let's start at the top of the market. So BTC and ETH. So way down. We got BTC way down. I mean, it's down and people are panicking in the regular market, but topped out at 73K already this year. We're down to about just below 58K for BTC right now. ETH is hanging out at 3,100. It was as low as 29 at least, I know, the other day. Huge liquidations. The day after we got off the air last week, the 4th of July, we had all kinds of liquidations. Actually, I think the biggest one since FTX in terms of Bitcoin. So in the crypto market anyway, I should say. So the biggest liquidation event since FTX. That's November, what was that, 2022, I guess? Yeah, November 2022. Which was just a complete and utter hellscape for anybody that was around back then. I mean, if you want to talk about fearful times, I mean, I know people there's fear like within PulseChain just because prices are down right now. But I mean, in terms of fear in the overall market, November 2022 was when guests on Joe Rogan were saying that the BTC price was going to go negative and blah 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 blah. So that was fun. But yeah, Bob Lucas, I was going to bring up too. I know you're not a fan of Ewok, but in terms of his 4-year cycles, I definitely am a fan. He was talking, he thinks we've definitely bottomed and mentioned buying. He just, he's a long-term kind of investor with BTC. So he mentioned buying his first huge batch of BTC since those bear market lows back in November of 2022. So his confidence was right here in this mid 50K level for BTC. And this other weird angle, there's a lot of people out there on Twitter, apparently, this is just something I heard because I've been staying off there as much as I can, but that actually think that, hey, this was like a triple top. This is the end of the bull market. Like, this is it already. We're heading down. This time's different. All those kind of narratives. So let me get your take on any direction you want to go there, where the prices are at, whether the end of the bull market is here, wherever you want to take it. I'm interested in your thoughts.
Well, historically, like we have said many times, after the halving, what was that, April-ish, there is always a pullback. Well, it kind of did a weird run up first, and now this is that pullback. Has that Bitcoin pullback stopped? Well, I don't know. This candle's, it's looking pretty bullish. and the strength of the RSI is definitely headed back up in the right direction. It's taken a pretty sharp turn here if you look at it. Usually when they make this move real quick, it's a good sign. Now that could easily turn around with with a bad day. Obviously, that would level that back out, but it does look like it's headed in the right direction. Was that, what is it, 53,000? Was that the top of the or the bottom of this pullback? There isn't a whole lot of support until you get way back into December of 21. This was resistance, a lot of resistance here, and then it was support back here in April of 21. So these levels, while they do have some touch points, it is kind of looking that way. So the one I'm more anxious to see kind of what happens with, obviously, I think we all have our eyes on Ethereum a little bit more than Bitcoin, just because of the
A lot more. Yeah.
ramifications, and we're a lot more closely tied with the Ethereum chain, because you bridge right over into PulseChain. Obviously, there's a lot of value from Ethereum. There's some major wallets out there that hold a lot of Ethereum, so obviously we want to see that do well. And I had originally said that I thought we would be at 4,000 by the beginning of July. Well, here we are 10 days later, and it took a nice healthy shit. You know what I mean? So it's just, it did this. I kept this here, and it's funny how it did bounce off of this trend line. So I thought that was kind of interesting. As soon as this ticked down, it basically touched it. I haven't moved this in several weeks or months anyway. It was back in April when I think I drew this on here. So it's funny how that touched that trend line, and it just kind of pulled right back up, and now we're on our way back up. So with the ETF stuff coming down the pike, I really think this has been the bottom. Doesn't mean we can't have another pullback, but I do think this is pretty much it.
I'm with you. I think it is too, and I know we're still, not far off of it. We haven't made like a huge recovery yet with BTC, but I do think it's the bottom for that. You were more so talking about ETH there too. I mean, I think so as well. And yeah, I mean, it's been a matter of time. Like ETH has to close in on BTC at one of these times. Now I know, of course, there's the Bitcoin maxis out there that still apparently have no idea what Ethereum is at all and believes it's a scam of some sort. I don't know how that even could still exist, but it does apparently. And we've seen that ratio ETH to BTC recover a little bit since the ETF announcement, but it still isn't at a good spot, and we're still waiting for that to kind of shake out. So I know last week when we had our open mic and talked with Briz and all those guys, we kind of speculated on like October, November, more and more people. I mean, a lot of people, this isn't a new thing just because of the pullback. People have been expecting this fall for where things would get more bullish in the ETH and alt landscape anyway. I mean, I think that's basically where people have been looking.
Yeah.
And to your point, like, I know people are upset about price right now, but and we'll get into this when we talk PulseChain, but like, I feel more kind of comfortable, I think, and at ease than ever, just because I think we're just looking at time. Like, I understand the intraday stuff really sucks. It sucks to have a bunch of meme coins that go down 25 to 30% in an hour. I mean, that does happen. It sucks. I understand that. The intraday is very, very difficult. That's why we have Frank Molina on a lot, and he talks about the importance of not focusing on that as much. But that's why I'm kind of comfortable right now, is I feel like we're just looking at time. And I love that this cycle does appear to be playing out exactly as it always has now. And many people were duped into the left translated. We gave it a lot of credence on this show as far as talking about it, because why not? I mean, BTC hit a new all-time high before the halving. I mean, that was pretty insane. But we've gotten exactly what we've been expecting. Maybe not the pullback the whole way to where we thought, but a healthy enough pullback in a long enough period of time where it looks like we have a normal cycle here. And that excites me a lot, because that's like, hey, we got a lot of time on our hands. You said to me before the show, we've got like maybe 17 months left, which is fantastic.
Till the top. And to your point, it's one of those things that you can't put a value on, and that is time. I don't think there is a way to value that. And it's, it goes back to the philosophies of RH where, you know, it's that delayed gratification. It's that the time in the market is what matters the most. And that's why I still feel that Hex is going to be one of the most important things, because people are locking up for so long. I don't know if you've seen much of what Crispy's been saying, but how many T shares are actually out there into 2039, which is right now a 5555 stake. There are so few. And I think there's going to be a big tidal shift as far as some of these people who will be the new whales, because there are so few T shares that are locked out there. Now, as we get closer, obviously people will do the shorter stakes. But right now, is if you're not capturing them now, they're going to be super hard to get. Be in a mental asylum. Well, that's
I think
the
he
top.
already is. I think he already is.
That's the top. I know he lives in a pink padded room as it is anyway. So I'm just kidding, brother. But yeah, that's the thing that we don't talk about is that time element that you really can't put a price on. And it's so important to be able to, you know, go with the flow until that time happens. And so important that, you know, it's not given enough credit for what it really is.
Yeah, I hear you. Didn't want to go down the whole Hex T share rate, but if that's where you wanted to take it, that's fine. But
Well,
yeah,
it has a
no,
lot to
I'm
do
with you.
with time. I mean,
Yeah, it does. It
that
does.
is basically,
And Crispy, yeah, and Crispy does put out amazing content for that. I
yeah.
agree. Yeah, no, and I'm with you. I mean, as far as the time thing, yeah, I mean that's the element that's actually hardest for everybody. We talked on this show a lot throughout 2023 of people getting shaken out and capitulating because of the time factor, not so much the price, just like
Right.
we're not moving, like
Yep.
nothing's moving. What do we do?
Mhm.
And we've talked so many times. I mean, like we may have what 2-3 months of a process where things do go parabolic eventually here, and it's like you're playing for like 3.5+ years of
Yep.
mostly negative market sentiment, or at least boring sideways stuff, for an absolute, you know, blow off top. And
Yep. And
that's
that
the
blow off
tough thing.
top is so short, right? I
Right.
mean,
That's
3
insane.
months, 6, 5, anywhere between 5 and 3 months, usually is when most of that action actually happens. You know, it reminds me of the old meme. It's one of the old memes. I haven't seen it much lately, but it's the thing there with the stick
Stick. Yeah.
poking Bitcoin. It says do something. You know,
Mhm.
it really is. That's what it is. But now it's like the whole markets are kind of, you know, in that period where we just want it to do something. We want it to go up. Obviously, do something can mean go down too, and we really don't
True.
want that. But just that sideways action does get pretty monotonous after a while.
Yeah. Yep, it does. Let's turn our attention to the PulseChain ecosystem. So, falling again. Actually, weirdly enough, a mini rally, if you will, as we got on air here from where it was earlier today. But I mean, we have been talking about this region. We've been calling this a double bottom since we've been at like what 4 zeros and a 4-5. I mean, if you look at the weekly chart, which you don't have to pull up yet, but if we do in a moment, I mean, you'll see. I mean, we've been in that range, calling it a double bottom for a while now. Have we hit the nut bottom of where we were nearly a calendar year ago yet? Not quite, but I mean, we're
Close.
essentially there. Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're like literally like 15% off. I mean, it's
Yeah.
nothing. So we are double bottoming. We have been double bottoming. We're still here now. Let's hope it is. Actually, I'll say this. Let's hope it is a double bottom. I don't want us to go lower. I mean, like, you know, who knows? Because I mean, it was really, I think it would have been late August, maybe even early September last year. It was weeks after the initial corrupt SEC horseshit complaint. Whenever we saw that capitulation, I know you and I disagree on this. We're going to get into this conversation later. I think that Pulse would have been destined for these lows regardless, maybe just not in such a quick red candle fashion as it happened with that, you know, garbage news whenever that came out. But we are here again now. And this morning, $1.2 million of Pulse was liquidated. I saw a very big liquidation. There's been a lot of that happening, actually, just kind of seeing the alerts on Twitter. Richard Hart tweeted today, it's going to be kind of bullish. I don't know what he exactly means by this. Maybe I should have been one of the breaking news people and said, breaking, Richard Hart says. But his tweet today about the price being at the SEC complaint low, just what we were just talking about. He tweeted about that, and did his normal, like, hey, past performance doesn't equal future value, blah, 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 blah. Kind of indicating like, maybe it would be a good time to buy. I'm not sure if he's indicating anything else there. Who knows? But what do you make of where we're at here? And I didn't read off all the prices. I'll do that. So Pulse is at quad 038. Pulse X is at 4 zeros and a 1.8 basically. Incentive has now gone below $2. It's at 186. But I mean, I still think overall, holding up better than people would expect at this point. Hex has gone the whole way down to 4.4 tenths of a penny at this point, and eHex is at it's been hanging out right kind of where it is. I mean, eHex is kind of like where the hell else can it go? 0012. So what do you make of where we're at? If you want to pull up that Pulse weekly, we can do that too. But yeah, we're really continuing this double bottom in earnest now for sure.
Yeah, let me pull up the Pulse USDC chart anyway, and there you go. Is it showing?
Yeah.
Cool. So we are looking at, we're at 3822 right now, and that other bottom, SEC bottom that he was talking about was 3298. So what we measure that. It was a little off. Oh well. Yeah, 13%. To basically to that point. I do think we will go there. When you look at charts like that, or in charts like this, new charts, ones that run up, and there's usually a gap, or there's a place to fill. Basically, it almost always goes back to touch that area for the final retest. And we can honestly just hope that it doesn't go any lower. I know there are some big bag holders out there that could get to that point and sell, thinking that it's going to go way lower, and they could really tank the price, which, would be bad for a lot of people, especially ones that have used liquid loans, things like that, where, now we're getting dangerously close to where the people that should have over collateralized when they did, it's starting to reach some of those areas where it's getting scary. You almost want to put a little bit more collateral in just in case it does go a little bit lower. That's kind of where me personally, where I'm getting to. I'm still probably over 500% collateralized, but it goes a little bit lower, and you do start to worry about those type of things. But yeah, I mean, I do like his tweet this morning, that was, it says almost down to the SEC complaint week low. So yeah, we're getting very close. I think that was maybe his call of a double bottom. Could be a great time to buy if you're not. But yeah, I mean, as with most markets, like I said, they do tend to go back to lows and touch. I know for what is it? I guess there's the different futures and things like that. When there are major run-ups and it doesn't have a chance to fill a lot of those spots, sometimes it does have to go back there in order to fill it up. And I think that's why it just kind of naturally happens that way. But yeah, I mean, I can totally see. And actually, this one wick was pretty much there again. So this would technically be, if it does come back and touch, a triple bottom, which is even more bullish than just a double bottom. So 3 tests of that level could be looking at the all-time low, hopefully, and we just run up from there. So let's get this 13% over with and just go. That's my view on the whole thing.
I totally agree. Shout out Axis Alive in the chat. I was just thinking today, I was like, I feel like I haven't seen that guy in a while. Welcome in, Axis. But yeah, same with me, Ewok. I mean, at this point, it's like, why not touch it again? Of course, who cares? What's 15% at this point? It doesn't really matter. I would love to say, I mean, I guess just the fact that I'm doubting it means I'm not confident, but I would normally feel pretty damn confident that, I mean, we're not going to go far below that number, maybe on a wick or something like that real quick.
Yeah.
I've too confidently said many other things and been, blasted in the face being wrong in the past in this market. So I'm not going to do anything like that. But I feels like that's what is about to happen. So yeah,
Right.
I would just, like you just said, I mean, we all want to be DCing as hard as we can right now, but the funny thing is everybody's like, with what money? I mean, I'm just kind of whatever I can bring in when I can bring it in at this point. Everybody's in. But
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah, no, and we're always going to be wrong. I mean, there are going to be things where we think happen and they just don't, and that's part of this whole game. When we put ourselves out here like that and we say things, they're not all going to be accurate, and hopefully the majority of them are, and some of our predictions hit, but obviously none of us have that crystal ball that we all wish we had. So
right.
We are going to make mistakes like everybody does.
That is true. Axis wants to jump on. You want me to send him the link? I don't think you'll be opposed.
I'm not opposed. I can shoot it over.
I'm going to do it right now. I mean,
okay.
If he wants to hop in, I would really like to get his take on kind of where we're at right now.
Sure.
So yeah, Axis, if you're listening still, I just DM'd you that, man. So yeah, hop on whenever you can. Yeah, but it's really interesting where we're at. And this brings me, maybe we can say this to Axis too if he hops on, but we haven't talked about this because I wanted to a few weeks ago, but we just had too many other big topics come in. We saw a Sacrifice affiliated wallet make a move a couple of weeks ago that was essentially just a ratio move. It was just selling off Pulse to buy PulseX, which PulseX, I mean, we know that it's been holding up amazingly against Pulse for quite some time, especially for how many holders there were of it compared to Pulse. And now, basically at that 1-to-2 ratio, or maybe a little worse than that. But we saw a rotation into PulseX to keep it at that 1-to-2, even when it's been up, it's been 1-to-3 at points. It's been up to 1 to almost 4 back whenever it launched, but it really settled into that 1 to 2.5 range or so. And now it's like 1-to-2. What did you think of that move? That there is at least some interested party within this ecosystem that has some resources that would like to see that ratio stay in that 1-to-2 range. I find that pretty interesting. Maybe if he heard it, we can just float that to Axis because he just showed up. So, what up, man? How you doing?
What's going on?
Can you hear me?
Yep,
we got you. Yeah,
just got back from a long trip, talking to crypto whales and across the 7 seas. So here I am.
Beautiful.
Right.
Beautiful. You look like a sea merchant. We got the green blue on you here, so looking good. Yeah, there you go.
I heard you say something about SEC something, and then I took my headphones off for a second. What was the question, or what were you?
No, so it wasn't the SEC. No, it was we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. We saw that rotation from a Sacrifice affiliated wallet from PulseChain, sold Pulse for PulseX, basically. So at least we know there's an interested party with a lot of resources that wants to keep.
Are we sure though? Because I thought that somebody else came in and went behind and said that wasn't the SAC wallet that sold Pulse. I could be wrong, but there was mixed information, and this is something that's been going on a lot right now. Maybe that's more important to say is even with like the Pulse Latina rug, people are blaming Gunther right away just because of the use of words. It's like that's getting into pretty risky territory. Like we don't really know, I'm not defending anybody or like, it's all shitty that it happened, but it's so easy for people to point fingers and put the blame, and like so many bad takes out there. And so I would just, take everything with a grain of salt out there, because there's so much bad chain analysis and just wrong conclusions that come from this stuff. So
yeah, I suppose I could be wrong on that. I thought it was relatively substantiated that it was a SAC wallet. Maybe I am wrong. But either way, so we'll take
let's assume it was. It's good to keep the gas price low, and it's good to pump the deflationary coin. That makes sense to me from a tokenomics perspective. Of course, I don't like seeing any of them to get sold by the biggest wallet, so I don't know if that happened. But I know there is substantial proof that in the Hex days that some Hex was sold to buy the Hex diamond. So that did happen. So it's not like they always never sold. But
right.
You know what I mean? It's sort of like this conundrum of as a market maker, like are you doing the right thing if you buy and hold forever, or are you doing can you actually paint a picture where it's the right thing to sell at certain times too, ethically, right? And I keep coming back to this. Like lately I've been thinking a lot about like what's ethical. Like, what is the right way to play this? Because if you pump let's say you pump $100 million into something and you never sold, you're basically like throwing money away when you, and then you can't bring that same capital back in later. Somebody else just took it, and chances are a large majority of that just never comes back into the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting topic. What do you guys think?
Well, and you look at other coins, like, so, you know, RH is always put on a different credential type thing, because when he does something, people don't like it. But when Ripple goes and sells a ton of their tokens to pay for whatever, it's okay, and it's understood, and it's expected. You know, Binance takes their profits from their exchange and they rotate it in. So, I mean, there's all these different things that happen. I know Solana has a lot of VCs that just cash out all the time. You know, there's just all kind of things. And how can you say one's right and one's wrong? I do agree with what you said, where is if you just keep rotating money into a system and never take anything back out to save for later for another bottom, because we all know there's going to be another bottom eventually. What are you left with, and where do you keep getting that fresh capital? Because I don't think we'll continue to have sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice. You know, maybe with the wallet would be the only next sacrifice. But after taking so long to launch the products, how many people are going to be involved in another RH sacrifice? You know, it just makes you wonder.
A lot, because the price will probably be up a shitload by then.
Well,
and then people will be like, hey, that worked out. But no, I don't think that's the right play at all. Of course. I was thinking about like, well, where can you get more funds from? Well, I mean, there's like these protocols on like Summer.fi on Ethereum where you can stake or go into LP with some of these stable to stable pairs, or like wrapped staked ETH to ETH, and get like anywhere from 8% on the low end to as high as like 89% APR.
Yeah.
You know, so the higher the APR, the little bit, you know, the more risk. But yeah, those options are out there for a player that big. So I think the capital preservation right now is key. But yeah, it feels bad for the PulseChain right now.
It does. I wanted to ask you, I mean, we kind of just were looking at the Pulse chart and just discussing prices and everything. I'll let you take it whatever direction you would want to, or if you want to pull any charts up that you find interesting right now. But I'm interested in, you know, what do you think the probability is that we are just seeing a double bottom here? I mean, we've been in the range of a double bottom here for some time. And I guess even more so what we're interested in is the timeline of this. I know I heard Hans was on with our buddy Crypto 7, I think, the other day. And he was really, really honing in on that like October timeframe for a good turnaround, I think it was, or maybe November, basically the fall. I don't know. I'm just curious what you think here in terms of a turnaround. And if you want to speak to the bigger market, like to ETH closing in on BTC, we finally seen BTC like pull back healthily here. We got the Mt. Gox stuff going on. We got Germany doing God knows what, all this stuff. And we finally is like, are we going to see ETH close the gap and then pull up the alts? So if you want to start maybe with ETH, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this stuff, but whatever direction you want to take.
I think the BTC Germany dumping thing is a good thing. I really do, because it's showing like Bitcoin's resilience in the face of all that. So in like a 4 hour, you can see that there is a good bid coming in here on Bitcoin. Let's go daily. Yeah, there's a good bid coming in here, and like prices have been pretty stable, made a higher low even on the wick here, and then it's continued to climb. And look, it popped up today to 59,500 and then sold off. But like, this is typical of like you clear out the leverage positions up here that are short, and then it resets the chart a little bit, and then you get some sellers that follow through, but then it's not enough to take it to new lows. So this seems good to me for Bitcoin to try to post up here and create some sort of a structure and break out. And I think I've seen DIY investing talking about wick offer distribution schematic up in these levels that basically has this like, it looks something like this, and then it comes back down, and then it basically breaks out and goes from here. So it's within this range at the top, but there's two types of distributions, and this would be like an upside distribution. So like more of like a reaccumulation at a key level, and the key level takes us all the way back here. So we're just kind of trying to flip these levels of support right now on Bitcoin. And I don't know if you guys remember, like the last time I was on here, I had this drawing. Let me refresh this because I'm pretty sure that drawing is still on here from our actual stream together. Here it is, the blue line, the infamous blue line. So I drew this back in I must have been February or probably like February or March. We switched on to a weekly, but this was kind of what I was thinking would happen. We'd get this retest of, 30K has been the level to retest, because remember, this was the level to come back to, and we never did. Right. And now it's a big question. And so then, like, what we'd have to look to is like the stochastic for a bull cross here on Bitcoin, and we're getting that cross right now. And these crosses happen about every 6 months, and when they happen, that results in these big momentum swings for Bitcoin. So like here. Now here we are, almost 6 months later again. But we put in a fake out one here, and it was kind of good though. I think that let me say this about the fake out, like it's good to see some some pause in the market, because it was so. Remember, you guys were talking earlier in the show about left translated, and like this time sideways has given us less of a chance of that being true, and now we get to fart around hopefully for a little bit longer. And obviously this blue line isn't going to play out exactly, but the point was that sideways action, even in such a huge range like this, isn't a bad thing. And I think what we're really looking at is a retest of like 44 to 46K, something like this. So I don't really think necessarily we'll go break the ETF breakout levels here, but I think that we could. I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place. Either Bitcoin's gonna go up here and break out and kind of like consolidate one more time and start to go higher into the end of the year, or it'll chop and break down one more leg. It's like to do something different this time. And what I mean by that is, like, when we went back here to 25K, this was the play, was this kind of like test of support. And so this is kind of where we're at now, right? So we're at that where it feels a lot like this is what's about to happen, is we're just going to go sideways for like 6 to 12 weeks and then just kind of grind up and break out. But it would be so poetic if it tricked everybody, broke down to that 40K level, and then we reverse from there. So I think that's kind of the timeline. It'd be end of the year and then into early next year for BTC to start to move. Usually September leading into October is good for Bitcoin. So I would look at October, not just for Bitcoin, but also for the Pulse ecosystem and for ETH as well. ETH might get it earlier. We got to pay attention to that ETH ETF S1 when that comes out. That might change this fractal, might make it come sooner, right? So definitely some stuff at play here. And I'm gonna call ETH BTC.
I really thought people would be front running that ETH ETF. I mean, you remember even just the false posts on Twitter that were made when we thought Bitcoin was going to happen, and they said no, not yet, and then it sold right back down. But just people trying to front run it, and we're not seeing that with ETH this time. I don't quite understand why people aren't trying to front run that ETF, but maybe you have some insight to that.
It's interesting. I think I would just I can only look at the data really, and the ETH supply is like super low on exchanges right now. So there's definitely a shortage.
Yeah.
And maybe that front running, what that looked like was what we got from, sorry, I'm on the ETH BTC. Let me go back to ETH here. Was this pump on the weekly here, where we just kind of went straight up for 5 weeks. And so that sucked up all the supply, and that was like Richard and Justin Sun and those guys. And then it took like very small amount of capital to do this in the following weeks after this sell-off. So this was like by the way, it's storming here, so if you lose me, that's what happened. But okay. This is like
we were supposed to get that tonight, I think, but I haven't seen any yet. So yeah.
So yeah, this bull, all these weeks was just like letting supply come from off the market and come back into the liquidity pools or back into the exchange, so that somebody could come in and snipe it back up. So I mean, this looks like really strong and healthy to me. This looks like if anything, it's playing possum. Everybody wants a better price, but it's not, eventually, like, there's just no coins left, and that's reflected in these exchange balances. If I can get them up here, yeah. So
I think
lowest
also
level since 2015. It's crazy.
Wow. And also, I think ETH held up so well in the bear market. I mean, it held up well reflective to BTC in the bear market too. And then coupled with what you just said, there's, huge run-ups that we had also. Yeah, that it possibly already saw the bullishness, I guess.
Yeah, so I honestly think that's what this was here. And that's what it's reflected in the ETH BTC chart a little bit here. Where you get these massive green candles. You gotta wonder, like, are all the other like layer 2s and layer 1s, like, are they still relying on ETH for liquidity, or is that meta kind of changing and evolving a little bit? So it's like, are we less, as the industry as a whole, is it less reliant now on ETH liquidity, or are we right? And does the whole market really still rely heavily on the billions of dollars of ETH liquidity to fall back on? And I just I wonder how much money is in a lot of these other networks, because in PulseChain, there's only like $100 million in there, like total, for all of us to fight over.
Right.
And how many of these other chains are in the same situation? I know a lot of other chains have a lot more money than them than the PulseChain bridge. But it's interesting. Like I said, I think Bitcoin and ETH both look right. They look great. And time frame wise, there's a couple like things like we talked about already, just August and potentially getting the S1 early, and then October is what I'm really looking at.
So let me ask you it on a time frame for like PulseChain. I mean, like, what do you think? This question from Checks My Pulse kind of makes sense too. How does PulseChain first year compare to ETH first year so far? The relation of those two. How far does PulseChain lag behind Ethereum starting to tick up? Because I mean, again, I think we're really waiting for all of the alts, not just PulseChain, to see Ethereum perk up. So if you want to answer Checks' question there and then take it another direction, just kind of give us your PulseChain layout, how Pulse versus PulseX may perform, Ink, Hex, wherever you would like to go, just as far as the timeline or where we were looking in the PulseChain ecosystem.
Well, the early days of ETH, like, obviously this happened a lot faster. Also, the market is just so much different. It's so hard to compare these things now because we're literally a fork of something that's like 8 or 9 years old now. So it's like, and there's hundreds of competing networks. And so, yeah, it's a tough place to be in, because this is where Pulse goes into its existential crisis mode, and it has to do something significant to gain favor from the market. And, we've all been saying that it's going to be the green candle action that's going to do it. And I still think that that's really all it's going to take, is some serious inflows to the chain. And it's just going to force the market's hand. They're just going to have to come over here to try to get a piece of the pie. But it's really the only way you get to be a douchebag on camera for a year or two as a founder and still have a thing that becomes successful, is if you just have so much money that it doesn't matter. And you basically force the market's will. Kind of the same way that you force the market's will on the EHEX thing a little bit. So I think you guys said earlier about just how this chain is in a unique situation, like how we're in a bull market, but PulseChain is effectively, on paper, looks like it's in a bear, or like looks like it's in a bad place. But remember that we're all trading right now EHEX at like 10 to 15 cents right now, if you're talking in Pulse terms. So it's like you got to reframe it a little bit. But so like effectively, like those that were early on the sacrifice and went in heavy, they're still playing in a bull market, while the rest of us all have to play in a bear market. So it's kind of like an unfair game right now in a lot of ways. But yeah, that's why there's so much opportunity with these tools on this chain to try to get ahead and amass a bigger amount of units of these coins that you want to accumulate. So like, I think you should take the opportunity as you can to learn the skills you need to advance your position on the network, and just try to consume as much digital real estate as possible on PulseChain, because the meta game is completely different than just buying and staking Hex, for sure.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to go, whether it's like LP providing, or if you are into some of legitimate like meme communities now and stuff like that. There's a million different platforms to get involved with right now. I'm curious what you feel about. Oh, we just lost him. Maybe it was the weather. I don't know. I know he said he's getting the downpour there. So
yeah, his internet might have dropped off.
Yeah. No worries. I think we got, if that's all we got, that was actually, there he is. There we go. Yeah, I don't know. I figured the downpour got you there.
Got hit by lightning.
Yeah. I am curious. So we were talking about like the Pulse X thing a minute ago. Like when we do see this ecosystem, I know this seems like a foreign concept to many at this point, but if we do see this ecosystem ever go up, what do you think it looks like for like people have talked a lot about Pulse X and Inc being these like they have run the hardest basically every time that we do see a pump, it seems like. Do you think we see that when we see the ecosystem start to go up again? I know other people have recently been talking about Hex potentially being the one to do that. It's taken a huge beating, obviously, over the last few weeks. I think Hex actually is at its low, correct me if I'm wrong, against Pulse ratio-wise. Maybe not so now that Pulse has come down so much, but recently it was. Yeah, but which tokens do you think look like they'll really slingshot when we start going back up and maybe catch people off guard? Or how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, so Pulse X is actually doing well. And if you're not measuring the dollar, which if you have bags on this chain, you should be measuring your success in Pulse terms. Now, if you're going to leave the chain, then yeah, you want to measure your things against ETH and BTC, and that's a whole other level of skill. But I think a lot of us believe that Pulse can do many X's, and so we just need to overperform that with whatever coin. And Pulse X is a perfect example of a coin that there's less and less of them every day, and that's getting bought and burned off the market just through the LP. And so this is why the price of this coin is increasing against Pulse every day. It's up 84% over 212 days against PLS. It's in this like channel, and I think the target is parity. Like it's going to go 1-to-1 and perhaps even beyond this cycle. And this shift in narrative needs to hit still. Like most people don't get that's going to happen. It's time to start looking at Pulse X and Inc as like the things that are going to perform really well on this chain, and it's going to kind of drag everything else up with it. But that doesn't mean that Pulse won't do well or something. And then in terms of Hex, like obviously the combined Hex price is pretty beat up, and in Pulse terms, it's not made a new low yet. So the combined Hex is like how much is it up off this wick? Like 46%. And interestingly enough, like eHex is actually gaining. I
think we're losing him again.
Looks like his powers and light flickered and everything.
Oh shit! Yeah, I see that.
We lost him again. I think he just, or maybe his internet went out and he froze.
Yeah,
but
one of the two. We'll leave him there and see. Well, I don't know. It's kind of weird to have him just sitting there frozen. I'll take him off for now. We'll see if he pops back in. Yeah, I know we're supposed to get that. I don't know when that's going to happen, but we'll see.
It rolled through here earlier. We got a hell of a storm, so I think it blew by us.
Batten down the hatches.
Either way, I think what he's saying is, with the buy and burn happening all the time, Pulse X is looking super strong. I don't know if you want me to. He finally dropped.
Yeah,
out
go
there.
ahead. That's fine. You can pull it up.
But let's look at the. Let's look at the Pulse X chart against Pulse here.
Yeah. That concept that he said of them actually hitting 1-to-1. I mean, do you think that's a real possibility? I mean, that to me would be insane. I mean, we haven't seen 1-to-2 is basically as good as we've gotten. And that alone has been strong as hell. So if that were to happen, all I'll say is I like my position. But
look at this run. I mean, this is Pulse X running.
Yeah, it's not up yet. Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Hang on.
Sorry. There you go.
There it is. It's a hell of a run. I mean, this is the Pulse X versus Pulse. And right now it's just under half. So yeah, I mean, it's just starting to really run against it. I don't know.
Yeah,
we got a couple flat. Oh wait, never mind. This is a 15-minute.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you're on a short time frame there. There we go.
Either way, this is the daily. Oh, the daily's not looking so good. 4 hours looking better, but the daily.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I think it's because Pulse has gone down so much. So yeah, usually when we start to get downward pressure, you're going to see Pulse X suffer. I know it's had a really rough day, but that most recent green candle, what's the time on that? Or these couple here? Like, I'm curious the day of that rotation. Yeah, that one. I wonder if that was that
This
rotation
was
day, maybe
June 20th, and I have a feeling it was
that seems about right. Yeah, that seems
the
about
day
right.
of that major swap from Pulse to PulseX. So yeah, this
Okay.
obviously took a nice run up that day. You know, there's been a couple major big buy candles here on this chart. So, but yeah, overall, look at the structure that it's building. It's just constant up.
That's insane. Yeah,
And that's, you know, goes to what Axis was just saying, that you know, there is a nice trend line. You could draw some nice lines on here, how it's just continuously trending upward. So, you know,
it's amazing. Like,
yeah,
to look at that chart and know that that's not like a just PulseX versus USD, to know that's a ratio right there of a
right,
DEX against the gas token.
right.
That is insane. How well that is.
Let's leave that there, and we'll see how well, you know, even if this does pull back and retest it, whatever, you know, we could definitely. It doesn't really play out into there, but at least from here up, it's been holding that line pretty well. So
That's very encouraging. And that gigantic, all that green from the where your line starts there, I'm assuming that's probably March, whenever we saw like millions injected into PulseX.
beginning of January is right
Oh,
in
wow.
here.
Okay. Oh, yeah, we did move up then. I think in March you're probably going to see some good action too. So just the fact that, you know, we had all those money inflows and you've seen it continue the upward trajectory long after that, you know, even while the ecosystem's falling. Like Pulse, as it falls, in theory, like when you were looking at the intraday, PulseX is usually going to come down pretty hard with it. But man, that is insane.
Checks my pulse. There's a big W formation there for sure. That's you know, you're looking at this W and then it goes. So yeah, that's usually a very bullish sign when you see a W like that.
It looks really, really good for sure. I had one more point on that, and I think I lost it. So maybe we can move on. But yeah, I was just going to say, we've talked about this before, but imagine this trajectory for PulseX. It might have been Axis we talked about with this before, but PulseX goes from, you know, pre-Pulse launch, you know, I won't name their names, but a couple people in particular, like, oh, dude, God tier tokenomics, this thing's gonna 14,000x. I don't know why that was the number, but that's what we kept hearing over and over. Then PulseChain launches. We see that 3 times the people that sacrificed for Pulse sacrificed for PulseX. 3 times the funds were sacrificed. So of course it just absolutely tanks in comparison to Pulse.
Right.
Looks horrible. It's a redheaded stepchild. Everybody's making fun of it. It's a joke, literally. Now its ratio is holding up super, super strong. And imagine, obviously, I don't think 14,000x is even remotely on the table, but this redemption arc of PulseX now, where it actually does end up being the best returns in the ecosystem, would be very fascinating.
Well, it goes back to that time issue, man. Who's to say 14,000x can't happen? But on what time frame, right? I mean, 5-6 years. I think that's how long it took Ethereum to do a 14,000x. It was 6 years or so. And depending on where it launched in the cycle, I don't remember where. I think it was 2015 when it launched, which put it 2 years prior to the top of 2017. So, you know, there's a lot of those things that you've got to kind of take into account as well. On what time frame? You know, Richard has always said he designs his things to do those type of X's. PulseChain, well, I don't know how you really design a fork, because there isn't a whole lot of design, right? There's some extra parameters that were added a little bit faster, the ability to, you know, have it cheaper to buy a validator, obviously become part of the network, those type of things. But there isn't a whole lot of development. Now PulseX is a little bit different because I think this is, you know, pretty original with the buy and burn. There aren't a whole lot of buy and burns out there, or there weren't at that time. Now there are. Obviously, it's become, you know, a popular type thing. You see more and more of these where they're buying the token up and burning it. So, that one I can totally see. So, maybe we do look at it and say, well, that was original. That creation, I could totally see if it was designed to do that over time. Pulse, we're just kind of relying on what happened with Ethereum, and it did a 14,000x. Why can't Pulse? So that's where those numbers came from. The numbers, like we said, everybody had so many of them. You see down for a while it finds its floor, and people are going to sell. And there was a lot of big bag holders that are no longer here. It's pretty interesting.
How about it? Yeah.
The less of those that we have, the less that this ecosystem weighs, and the less that they can sell later when it does go up. So that's why we always say it's important to wash some of these people out, these weak hands, get them out now while we can, so that we can move on and we can go higher. They'll buy back eventually, but they'll buy back higher, and that will be part of the green candles that keep the other new people coming in as well.
I totally agree with that. And I think that's been part of RH's, not that he's doing anything really to affect it, I don't think, but I think that's been a hopeful goal of his mentally, not thinking for him, but I think that it's like, hey, yeah, like get everybody out that you possibly can right now. And I think his intentions have been toward that, and why not? I would feel the exact same way. So I'm with you. Let's turn the page to this. That was a great discussion, bringing in Axis and getting all those points, though. I'm glad we went that route. We got to talk about the SEC response that we don't know to the corrupt lawsuit against the entities on the blockchain of PulseChain and everything else. If you guys are here and enjoying the stream, do us a favor, hit the like. We appreciate it. Support Real DeFi, help support the channel. We appreciate you guys being here. Checks my pulse, Honda, Trump AI. You guys have been consistent here every single week. Briz, welcome in. Appreciate all of you guys being here. But yeah, so the SEC does at 11:03 p.m. on Monday night, I think it was, filed its response to Richard Hart's attorney's motion to dismiss their, ridiculous lawsuit that we've all read the complaint on air and everything and seen how horrible it is. And nobody has really seen it in the public. Richard actually ended up tweeting that his attorneys have obtained it. And apparently I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's pretty boring, to be honest, but Nuclear Herbs tweeted the other day, and this is rare, so no wonder nobody knew it. But essentially, that judge's court has some strange rule where, for whatever reason, those do not just get revealed right away. They just go to the other party. I don't know when it's going to be revealed. I don't know if it is supposed to be revealed so people can see it. I forget exactly what his reasoning was, but essentially their roles prevent that from being public. I don't know why that is. So for now, we don't actually see or read the SEC's response to the motion to dismiss. It would have been really nice to see that, because we could get a guy like Nuclear Herbs to give his feedback on it. I think we are probably safe in assuming that it's kind of a limp, half answer response with not a lot of, basically just them continuing to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. I mean, I think it's just going to be them kind of continuing to limp dick their way through this whole thing is what I'm trying to say. So I think that's what we're going to see. I don't know that we'll see, I think it's August the 22nd is when RH's attorneys have the chance to do their final response back. And then, of course, we know late October is when there's actual oral arguments given. So that's really the key. But it would have been really nice to see all this stuff along the way, or maybe it won't. Who knows? I mean, because I'm sick of seeing people assigning stories to it. No, the market's going to do this because this came out or whatever. I'd rather, who cares? I mean, we don't really care that much about the SEC, and I don't think they have much of an impact, which is something we're going to talk about here in a moment. So yeah, anyway, we get that response. We don't know what it says. RH tweeted today, actually, that software is being sued in his case and encourages others in the crypto sphere who are going to be under attack as well, whether they realize it or not. Watch out for the SEC and file amicus briefs on their behalf. Mentions his responses due 8/22 and all those things. Let's discuss Ewok. I don't want to take guesswork at what the SEC's response was, because I don't know that it's kind of pointless to do that, but the eventualities of what the Pulse price or what the ecosystem may do with a positive result here, because I know you and I heavily disagree on this, but I guess if you want anything that you want to say about the potential response that we got from the SEC, how Richard may respond, and then going in there forward, and then when we would get a positive result in this, whether it is a little bit after October 24th, where they decide,
Right.
look, yeah, you guys don't have the jurisdiction, I'm dismissing this case. That would be A
Ideal.
plus. Yeah, exactly. Worst case scenario, I heard people saying the other day is like, oh, worst case is this happens and RH goes to jail. There's no scenario where RH goes to jail. I don't know why anybody's even talking about that. This is a civil SEC wipe my ass with it lawsuit. That's what this is. So, anyway, go ahead.
The one thing that we're not talking about, and the reason why it wasn't shown, I know Nuclear Herb said something about, according to Judge Amon's rule, they don't file until it's complete. However, there was a confidentiality clause that was put in there by Richard's team on, what was it, May 23rd, I think. And there could be some information, whether it be personal address, bank account, something along those lines that doesn't want to be out there, which I don't blame him. You know, if there is personal whatever. So there, that was listed on, I think it was filed on the 22nd and then approved or whatever on the 23rd. They're in the court listener there if you look at it, the confidentiality thing. So that could also be playing a part in this, I think. So your actual question was what do I think will happen under what scenario kind of thing?
I guess let me ask you this first. What do you think is the most likely scenario in terms of what the decision is and at what step of this process? And then we can talk about how the Pulse price may react, because you and I got into it about that the other day offline. So go ahead.
Well, we didn't get into it. But
we got into it. It came to fisticuffs, actually.
Yeah.
I had a bloody nose. Yeah.
You should see the other guy. No,
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Right.
So I think best case scenario is a dismissal. They have responded, which again, we don't know what it says. They could. So there's a lot of things happening as well at the same time that could also be setting precedent. The Chevron thing that happened could technically come into play here, where they don't really have jurisdiction on anything. They're a bunch of appointed bureaucrats who shouldn't be making these rulings in the first place. So that could come into play where, you know, we don't know. Ultimately, what we want to see is dismissal. What is it? With dismissal with prejudice, I think. Is it?
I don't know if they would do it with prejudice. That's kind of a rare thing to say, oh, yeah, you can't bring this back. I think it would be without prejudice, probably. I think they would allow the SEC to reconvene and, you know, connive up some other bullshit claim. Who knows, though? I could be wrong.
That's best case. Best case scenario would be, obviously, that, where they say this is not a security. They read the amicus briefs. They read and they understand what HEX is. They understand that it's a smart contract and not a person. How can you bring a case against a software? You can't. Like, it's going to happen whether you approve it or whether you didn't. Whatever you say, it's there and it can't be stopped unless you decide to turn Ethereum off, which you can't do that either, because you've already said that that's a commodity. So, you know, PulseChain is a clone or a fork of that. So now we've got two of them. So which one are you going to like, you know, it just grows and it gets more powerful day by day. So, you know, there's nothing really to say that there's nothing they can do anyway. I really don't understand what even a bad ruling could do. I think we are all kind of our worst enemy here. By giving it more credit than it really deserves. It is news. I get it. We got to, you know, we want to talk about it because we want the best for the best scenario is that this thing gets done, taken care of, and we all can move on. And I do feel like within a day or so of a ruling that's in our favor, that the price, I think it could 10x. I think it could easily 10x. And this is where we disagree.
Let's set the table here. Let's set the table. Put the tablecloth on. Put out the. Let me get out the dinner plates and the fine.
I'll break out the gold silverware.
Yeah, exactly. And Hexgirl, perfect lead into this. The SEC has zero credibility, so it's possible it would not affect the price either way. hint, hint, that's the direction I'm going. So anyway, so I tend to agree with you on like, what will the result be? So I'm honestly torn between, just because who knows, and who knows how the judge will kind of perceive this information, how clear she's going to be on a lot of this crypto stuff. But I mean, when it comes to jurisdiction, that's something I think she'll be more comfortable with making a clear-cut call, because regardless of cryptocurrency, she understands jurisdiction. You know what I mean? So I don't think that really has to do so much with any crypto aspect of this. So I'm kind of 50-50 on this gets dismissed, a couple of months after the October oral arguments versus, let it play out. And then we've got, court dates throughout 2025, and then RH still ultimately wins the case. It just takes longer. I don't see any scenario, period, whatsoever, 0% chance that the SEC wins really any aspect of this suit. Maybe they get like some money or something for some little ancillary technicality or something like that, just to shut them up. But at the end of the day, I think RH wins this case easily either way. It's just, will it be throughout the year of 2025, or will it get dismissed because of jurisdiction? That's what I think. In terms of the price, I agree with what Hex Girl said right there. Actually, I'll just let you go, Ewok, first. So you think that we're going to see like a 10x right off of a positive decision? So yeah, I'll hear you.
I do. I think there are enough people on the sidelines that are concerned about this. I think there are some major investors out there that are concerned about this. I think there are exchanges that won't list this stuff because of this. So all of those things combined, and I don't know that, are we talking overnight? Are we talking I think it happens within a month. I think within a month of a decision, we can easily 10x. Now, does that include certain wallets buying their own token? Who knows? Maybe that could be the celebratory pop of the champagne bottle. You know what I mean? Who knows? But I think there is a strong possibility that we would do a 10x within 30 days of a decision, a positive decision, based on all of those things: the money on the sidelines, the exchanges that would possibly list it. There are major investors out there waiting that have money, that have capital, that just they're afraid right now. They're not as deep in it as we are. They don't understand that this really doesn't matter, but it does to them if they've got, accredited investors or whatever. They're not going to touch something that the SEC is looking into until there's a decision made. So that's what I think. I think within 30 days, I'm being, so DJ Moonboy said probably more than 10x. I'm being very cautious with that prediction.
So your 10x is actually conservative.
Yes, I'm being conservative with that.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, I mean, honestly, us having this conversation now versus like 4 months ago is a lot different, because now we're at the low again. So, I mean, that is one thing.
And I forgot this point too. Hex Girl, thank you very much. Again, RH streaming. If he comes back to streaming, dude, immediately.
That's different. Yeah, I agree.
Well, how's it? I don't know.
No, I think it's better. I'm saying. I mean, like,
right.
Maybe they happen in tandem or whatever. But I would give a lot more credibility to RH streaming and being interviewed, or just doing a solo stream or whatever, than I would just a simple victory over the SEC.
I think these all tie in together, though. So,
in a way, I think they do. But okay, so here's what I want to say. They're clearly related. So I think more like a 2x within a day if we would get a victory over the SEC. I think there would be obviously massive pump right off of it. I think we would 2x instantly, pretty much right away. A couple of things you said there did get me to bend a little bit, because you're saying that this is a unique ecosystem. Like, this isn't, I can't just compare it straight up to XRP beating the SEC, because XRP literally has the CEOs selling shit tons of the token on their investors' heads. I mean, like, they're horrible. They're caught in a trap over there. We don't have that. So that is good. And I think you're right too. I think there are a lot of people on the sidelines that have a lot of money to spend. They're staying quiet. I don't agree with you at all on the exchange thing. Like, oh, maybe the exchanges aren't putting us on because of the SEC. Half of them are embroiled in bullshit lawsuits with the SEC too. I think it's more so just that, like, well, it's Richard Hart and they're out there doing their weird little DeFi thing, and we're not really into that. I think that they just don't care, frankly, about us. And it's all like Richard Hart's out lobbying to get their tokens listed or anything like that.
Right.
I definitely don't think we're going to see a 10x in like a matter of days. I can't see that happening. I think there would be like an instant 2x. But my whole point is, and it's exactly what Hex Girl alluded to a moment ago, nobody gives the SEC any credibility. I'm sure that you're correct that there are big buyers on the sidelines that are like, oh man, if I get clarity on this, I'd love to launch, a couple million in or something like that. I'm sure you're right about that. But I don't think it's as much as you're alluding to. I just think that not many people really do take the SEC that seriously. They don't win any of these lawsuits. And to me, if your presumption is like, with a defeat of the SEC, we would do a 10x. And again, I think there's literally a 0% chance of this happening. But if somehow the SEC triumphantly won that lawsuit and was proved correct and all these things and magically educated themselves on crypto and DeFi and all these things, what would that mean? Tell me if a win means a 10x in a few days, what would a loss mean? The total destruction of the ecosystem? I mean, because to me, no. Like, yes, it doesn't matter. I don't give a shit about this, and I don't think the SEC really has any credibility or anybody takes them all that seriously. So that'd be my counter question to you. What's the negative? What's the downside?
A lot more of where we're at now, and very, very sideways. A lot of people are relying on this and this alone for this ecosystem to do well, and we can't expect it. We just can't. We can't rely on this to happen. I mean, I know we always say no expectations, but even Axis was when he was in here just a little bit ago. So basically, what Briz is saying is, if Ethereum goes to 10 grand, that wallet makes a lot of money, rotates profits right into PulseChain, and we go up from there. We're relying on that to pump the bag. We're basically saying that our network's not good enough unless the founder dumps $500 million into it and pumps our bags.
I don't think that's what he's. I don't want to interrupt you. I'll let you finish your point, but I disagree with that.
That's what he's alluding to without saying it. I
don't think that he is.
Briz.
Maybe he is.
I'm pretty sure he's the. I've heard him say it. On Maddie's stream too. Yeah, you have to. Well, you want to front run. What he's saying is use his theory to use his theory to onboard people to front run the whales or the whale. The problem with that is the people aren't going to buy until they see green candles. So maybe the whale front runs them. They tag on and pile on to the green candles that are created by the whale. Again, what I'm saying is we can't rely on that. Like, what if it doesn't? What if that money just sits there on the sidelines? People are going to freak out because they all expect that entity to buy and pump the bags so that they can sell. Like, if that were me and I was sitting there with that much money, knowing full well that if I dump all this money into this ecosystem, how many people are going to sell at a 5x, 10x, maybe, and get out, extract the value right away before it can really do a whole lot. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. And I don't want to rely on it. I mean, it's a great story. We all want that bag holder to pump the price. But how likely is it that it happens?
Maybe Briz specifically is alluding to that, but I mean, think of how many different altcoins and different chains and stuff like that out there are dependent upon Ethereum going up. I mean, I understand, yes, like we have an even more specific potential interest in the Ethereum price. I understand that I'm certainly not discounting that, but I'm also saying that like a lot of tokens that our alts rely on Ethereum going up. Not like, oh, the founder has 100 or, a wallet associated with it has 170,000 ETH, but it performing well is going to help the alts. I mean, how many alts have like barely even moved yet because of the fact that Ethereum hasn't even hit all-time highs again yet, So I think there's that also. I don't think it is just, oh yeah, I didn't take that comment. Maybe that's what Bruce is saying. I mean, I don't think it's being reliant or depending on something like that. But I do agree with, I actually agree with his second point about like, hey, use that theory to onboard people. I mean, to me, it's kind of like Elon Musk. It's like, here's a guy who's extremely confident. He's confident in his capabilities, the companies that he's making, and he puts his own resources back into it. Last I checked, there's nothing wrong with that. Jeff Bezos, like this is a guy who's a Chad. He's going to put his money back into his ecosystem. Good. I mean, like instead of all these other scammers that are out there shitting all over their investors, dumping all the money on them. Why?
Well,
go ahead.
Well, and Crypto Stylist, by the way, I caught your stream the other day. Welcome back to streaming. But no, she says we need to have our own plan without the OA. Same thing. We shouldn't expect it. We shouldn't expect the founder to buy back their own coin. Johnny says the same thing. So, my point was a win in the SEC case would be huge. I think that would be enough spark to get things going where we're not relying on that to happen. Because I feel like everybody now is just sitting around and waiting. There isn't a whole lot. I mean, some of us are buying little bits and chunks, but I don't see any other whales coming in. I don't see a God whale type entity coming in to do anything, because I think they kind of feel the same way. Every time the price pumps a little bit by one of those wallets, it gets sold right back down. So, it's hard to be that first one that makes that jump to say, I'm pumping the hell out of this and here we go, and not worry about the people that are just extracting the value. That would be my fear if I had that money and people were relying on me to do it. Because why? Why are you relying on me to pump the bags so you can get out? And
right.
It's just.
I'm with you on that point. I'm totally with you on that. I agree. Anybody that's like, oh yeah, I'm just waiting around for this to happen. No, I totally agree with you. I guess we're kind of talking about two different things here. We're talking about like ETH's effect, and then we're also talking about the SEC. I personally do not think a victory, a loss, any result from the SEC is going to like severely affect the trajectory of this ecosystem. And I think that is fantastic news, because I don't think they have that kind of power, and it would be horrible if they did have that kind of power. I think that for like a week we would see insanely bullish action. I agree with you, but I don't think that we'd get like a 10x or something like that. Just like I think there's zero possibility the SEC wins this whole case, like every aspect of it. I don't think there's any chance that happens. No, but if it did, I don't think it really affects the ecosystem that much, because by that time we'd be like deep into a bull market and nobody would give a shit anyway. So I don't take them seriously, and I don't think the majority of people do. I don't doubt that there's people on the sidelines with a lot of money that would be dependent upon that and to eject their money, but I don't think it's that big a deal anyway.
Yeah. And again, we go back to that time issue here. James B says all heroes come out of tough times. 99% will buy after 1,000x. Just take a look at the price of Ethereum or Bitcoin today versus year one. So I mean, time in the market. Again, we go back to that famous saying, that the time in the market is really what matters. And the ones that are here early and stay here are going to be the ones that reap the most rewards, other than the ones that jump in and out of it trying to time things.
Right. Well said. That was a fantastic discussion. Appreciate everybody's input. There was a lot of great comments on that. I have a little person kind of calling my name here. Is there any? I know we had a couple things we wanted to get into. I don't really want to go way too far into anything else. I love what we did cover here tonight. Is there any last couple things you wanted to mention at all, Ewok?
I don't think so. I think we got to the big points.
Yeah.
The one quick thing that we can talk about was Eric Wall's his leverage on Fame, that he's longing Hex. Kind of interesting. I did see he had a short that he closed on, was it Pulse or PulseX? I sent you that earlier today. PulseX.
Yeah.
he closed that short and made like $5,000 on it. So interesting to see him playing around and dabbling in this ecosystem that, you know, he tends to talk a lot of shit about, but
right.
You know, pretty cool that he's got a long out on Hex that he feels that way. So
I thought that was interesting. Yeah, when I first saw Ericawall.pulse or Eric Wall or whatever he is, I thought it was fake. I didn't think it was really him, but yeah, it turns out, yeah, that long on Hex was actually him, which I thought was interesting. And then it went down by about 20% within a couple of days after he opened it, I believe, or maybe 10% anyway. So
hope he gets liquidated.
Yeah, pretty interesting. So overall, I mean, I think that we have a lot to be bullish about. I understand. Look, we're going to have replays of this videos. All the comments, I know I haven't been sharing too many of these with you lately, but all the comments on our videos are negative right now. Everybody's pissed off about everything. Everybody's making fun of us for being bag holders and stuff. It's just like where we are right now. And I'm sure that's true across a lot of channels affiliated with PulseChain. And, you know, a lot of crypto right now. I mean, things are down. We're definitely double bottoming now. It looks like we just kind of bounced off that 36, 37 number a little bit earlier today. We'll just have to see where we are. But like you just said it a moment ago, I mean, all we talked about all stream was about time here. If you go back earlier in the stream, if you guys joined us late, we were Access Alive popped in a little bit earlier. If you want to check out his segment, it was kind of perfect. Same thing we're talking about here now. I think it's just time. So we're chilling out until the fall. You know, we'll wait and see what kind of news maybe we do get with this frivolous case that we have on our hands, but also just kind of price action, especially from Ethereum and everything by that time. And 2025 is still to come. We are looking more and more like we're having a traditional cycle at this point. So we've got a long way to go. I mean, as you said earlier tonight, Ewok, we may have a year and a half to go, which in crypto is a freaking eternity. And a lot of good stuff could happen in that time frame. So
ton of things can happen between now and then, and that is the top. Don't get me wrong. I mean, right. I think we'll start to fade up before that. But you know, you're taking the 4-year cycle from the top to the top, and from there, you know, you're looking at what I think it is 17 months. You know, so we're getting there.
Yep.
Be patient.
One day at a time.
DCA, DCA. Now's the time.
Yeah. And anytime I can, I'm doing it. Trust me. And I will say this. I don't want to go way into this because, again, I got to get going here. But I went on a mini vacation last week, I mentioned, or a couple of weeks ago now at this point. And I got to tell you, like, we talk about this all the time, but it cannot be overstated. Getting away from Twitter. Like, not even just when times are bad. I mean, there's always somebody with a, you know, mental illness that is on Twitter that, you know, 20 years ago or whatever it may be, just kind of was writing in their journal or something like that. And now they're thumbing out a tweet about, you know, 30 reasons PulseChain will fail with the thread emoji. And they go down there. I mean, like, not even just that, but with many things. There's so much negativity. I see like Michaela Peterson, Jordan Peterson's daughter, is like having a colossal meltdown right now and going back and forth with some person about racism and Jews and all this stuff. And I'm just like, there's just this mass psychosis going on, dude. Like, even with people that are supposedly, I mean, Michaela Peterson is the daughter of a wonderful, you know, psych professor that I've put in a lot of hours listening to, and I have a lot of value in what he says. And I'm like, here's his daughter having all these weird, like, people, nobody is immune, was what my point is, to what is going on these horrible platforms. And I don't think Elon Musk buying it has made a difference in terms of that. Like, there still is negativity that predated Elon Musk. It's still there. Those things are still out there. And when I was not disconnected, but at least like I was only touching base with the market, like here and there when I was away, I was like, dude, I have such a better relationship with this stuff now. Like, when I'm not, you know, bored and just popping on Twitter for a little bit just to see any maniacal thought that any person has, you know, you have a sense of like, this is all going to work out. I don't know why I worry about this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, when you're enjoying life and away from it as best you can, I know people are in different predicaments and things are difficult sometimes. I understand that, and you can get wrapped up. But when you can distance your relationship from it and have something else going on in your world, I think it makes you act much more rationally, and it's a lot easier to handle the lumps, so to speak. So yeah, just some sentiment I wanted to throw out there. So
yep. There's something to be said about putting your bare feet in the grass. That's for sure.
My feet are very dirty today. Yeah, I looked at my bare feet. Yeah, I have been walking around barefoot all day, actually. So there we go. Cool. Well, hey, I want to express gratitude for everybody in the chat tonight. This was fantastic. This is a great stream. I feel like we got back in the saddle tonight. We had our open mic last week, but thank you to Checks My Pulse, Bridge, Dejin Moonboy, James B, Crypto Stylist, Johnny was in here, Axis earlier, of course. Take a break with Jake. Thank you for producing the show tonight, bud. We appreciate it. Hex Girl, and a whole lot more. We really appreciate you guys. So we will be back right here on the 17th next week, Wednesday night, 6:30 Eastern PM Standard Time. So for Crypto Ewok, this has been Boi Crypto. We'll catch you guys next week right here on the Creative Crypto live stream. See you guys.